Good evening, and it's an honor to be here tonight. And I want to thank you, Mei Lee, for the wonderful introduction. Thank you. So what I'm going to tell you about is details of my life's journey. And it's a healing one, marked with self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-awareness. I have to admit, though, that I was initially puzzled as to why I was asked to speak at the USC School of Gerontology event, and I thought of myself as not old. And then I had another moment of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-awareness. While I am 76 years old, and I might not consider that to be too old, as age is just a number, others just might. As I share my story with you tonight, I hope you can learn from my journey, and that you, just as I have learned and gained inspiration from so many other life stories that have been shared with me. Those of you who are familiar with my colorful watercolors paintings may not know that while I have always been an artist at heart, I did not begin actively painting and exhibiting my work until after the major milestone of my 50th birthday. As a young child, I fell in love with color. The more vibrant, the better. When I was 3 years old, my mother could put me on the porch, and I could occupy myself for hours watching the beautiful colors appear on a blank piece of paper as I documented the stories unfolding around me. While the dream to become an artist came to me early, it took decades before I took the step to begin calling myself an artist. I attended college at USC, and I studied fine arts, specializing in design. I loved art, but to be very honest, I was not a stellar student. Fortunately, at USC, I discovered another passion. During my very first week of my freshman year, at my very first Troyland event, on the very first day they allowed rock and roll on campus, I caught the eye of a very handsome upperclassman. And that upperclassman eventually became my husband, Ed. So, at age 20, I got married. And for the next 3 decades, I set aside my dream of becoming an artist. While art remained a part of my life, it took a back seat to the other responsibilities like raising a family. And then at age 50, my life's journey came to a crossroad. With the family raised and the kids out of the house, I felt like something was missing. I realized I felt like a shadow to my children and to my husband. And I wondered if I might spend the rest of my life lost in the shadows. While major milestones have a way of making us reflective, there is another reason I was feeling reflective during that time. And I can sum it up in one word: cancer. Isn't it amazing how that single word can take your breath away? I dealt with my fear the only way I knew how, through art. Much to the dismay of my doctor as well as my family, I chose not to undergo more traditional cancer therapies of that time, even though my cancer was diagnosed as stage 3. Instead, painting became one of the forms of therapy. I would paint the good cells marching into battle against the cancer cells, and every new painting became a little victory, and eventually I won the battle. Art saved me, and I've been cancer-free ever since. My own experience dealing with cancer through painting is just one of the many ways that demonstrates the powerful healing aspects of art. Now, studies have found that when patients battling cancer and other chronic diseases engage in visual arts, they are distracted from thoughts of illness, and their well-being is improved by decreasing negative emotions and increasing positive ones. My fighting cancer with art, however, did more than just help heal my body. It forced me to focus. It gave me clarity about what's important and what's not. And it gave me a sense of gratitude for the gift of every day. From that moment on, I have embraced every moment of my life. It also strengthened my resolve and the courage to finally declare myself an artist. I converted all of my children's bedrooms into an art studio. And then I began to explore who I was as an artist and as a person. And for my very first solo exhibition, I created a series of ribbon paintings. Now, ribbons are one of those little things in life that is a continual source of joy for most of us. They symbolize the generosity of giving and the hope for new beginnings as the final touch for gifts wrapped up for many of life's most memorable events is a ribbon tied with love. I've participated in countless exhibits since those ribbon paintings were first placed on view, and yet the first exhibition will always have a special meaning for me. And while I may not have realized it at the time, that series is symbolic of who I am. I am a happy painter. All of my work from the very beginning has always been about celebration. Celebration of life, celebration of a person, and celebration of a moment. Each painting continues the healing force of my decision to be an artist because they allow me to create a narrative that enables me to reach out and connect with others. And through the sharing of stories, whether through visual form or written word, we see the parallels in each other's lives, which is a healing experience for all of us. And fortunately, I have a lot of stories to tell. Now, life is an adventure, and many of the stories I share in my artwork are inspired by my passion for travel. Venturing into the unknown territory teaches us to be present with our eyes open to see each moment as a new light, a new beginning. It also helps us realize that different cultures share far more in common and that our similarities truly outnumber our differences. Now, I'm fortunate to be married to a lifelong adventurer who loves to travel. Together, we have experienced so many adventures in this lifetime, from the heights of Kilimanjaro to the depths of the North Sea, where we descended in a submersible to view the ruins of the Titanic. While many people like to record their travels in a journal or diary, I like to document our journeys with my paintbrush. Each day I carve out time to create at least one new painting and create a sketchbook of each adventure. When I'm back at home following a trip, I often create paintings of cultural treasures that I have discovered during my travels. I have painted the fascinating Kachina dolls of the Hopi, exquisitely crafted baskets from the Zulu in Africa, and the Imbero women of Panama, and the ornate calligraphy brushes and snuff bottles from China, as well as Italian pottery and hand-painted Hindu gods in silver jewelry. While each of these objects happen to be aesthetically pleasing, what is personally pleasing to me is the opportunity to reveal intriguing aspects of life in other parts of the world. But a recent trip, which Mei Ling talked about, inspired a completely different series of paintings. Last fall, I took a journey to Guatemala, but instead of traveling with Ed, I traveled with more than 50 surgeons, nurses, and other medical professionals, many of whom were affiliated with USC. My travel companions were all volunteers from Operation Walk, which is an organization dedicated to giving the gift of mobility to those in need of critical hip and knee replacements. My role was to document in painting the tireless efforts of the volunteers who performed more than 50 life-changing surgeries during a one-week visit to Central America. As I carried around my camera, brushes, and paints, I met many patients who shared with me their hopes for returning to a more productive life. But it is the story of Rogelio Estrada that touched my heart. Rogelio is a simple man. He just wanted to work in the fields. He earned about $8 a day, and he walked home with pride. However, his legs had become so badly bowed that he could no longer work. His friends had nicknamed him the Crooked Man, and he had been told time and again that his condition could not be successfully fixed. Enter Dr. Lawrence Dorr of USC and Operation Walk, and he thought otherwise. I accompanied Rogelio throughout his journey and stood in the operating room during the knee replacement and leg straightening procedures on both legs. It was also with him I was also with him when he walked out of the hospital, smiling broadly as he knew he would be able to work again. In just 5 days, a dedicated group of exceptionally loving and giving medical professionals completely changed Rogelio's life, while also changing the lives of each of us who were lucky enough to watch this miracle unfold. And when I returned home, I buried myself in my studio and painted the story of Rogelio's journey. These and more pictures have been published in a book, The Crooked Man, His Doctor and His Angel, so others could share in the joy of his new life. Travel allows us to see the world from new perspectives and encourages us to view the surroundings in our daily lives in a different light. While I would love spending most of my waking hours in the studio painting, I also dedicate my time to promoting art in Los Angeles. I have served as the commissioner for the City of Los Angeles, and I've chaired the Arts and Furnishings Committee for Los Angeles Cathedral, and I am vice chairman of the California Art Club, one of the oldest fine art organizations in the country. Projects related to these roles require that I spend so much time in downtown Los Angeles, and it allows me to witness firsthand its transformation. Now, I'm a native Angelino who loves all of Los Angeles, from its rich history to diverse artistry and distinctive architecture. I continue to be captivated by its vivid colors and vibrant cultures. So I was compelled to preserve my beloved city's history, and I wanted to capture a snapshot of our city for the future. In the year 2000, I began creating Los Angeles Millennium Series. It includes Celebration, which features fireworks from in front of our impressive skyline. Now, other paintings in this series spotlight our cultural gems from Olvera Street to Chinatown, as well as famed landmarks from Union Station and to Disney Concert Hall. I am continuing to expand upon this series, which I intend to eventually publish in a book. Recent additions to this series include 3 that are currently on display at the Autry Museum: Griffith Park, Los Angeles Zoo, and the Griffith Observatory. These paintings are part of the Masters of the American West exhibition, which is now on view through March 25th. Additional new Los Angeles paintings will be unveiled in the next few months at On Location in Malibu, an exhibition at the Weizmann Museum of Art at Pepperdine University, and at the California Art Club's 107th Annual Gold Medal exhibition to be presented at the Natural History Museum. And here, you're the first to see a sneak preview of these. Another source of inspiration for my painting that is close to home is the California coastline. While vistas all along just about every stretch of land bordering our Pacific Ocean are truly breathtaking, there is something almost magical about the sights along the Pacific Coast Highway from Santa Monica through Malibu. When you exit McClure Tunnel, which is at the western end of the 10 freeway, you leave the city behind you, and a spectacular view of the Pacific Ocean is revealed. As you travel north along the coast, with the meditative tranquility of the ocean continually in view, the mind and the body begin to relax, and peace and joy fill the soul. Making this drive that winds towards Malibu never fails to rejuvenate my spirit and restore my sense of well-being. I decide to paint beloved sites along this route to capture the views at which I have continually experienced the healing powers of nature. And I titled this series of 40 paintings, which is on view at the emergency room of Providence St. John's Medical Center in Santa Monica, The Healing Journey. Now, years before I created the Healing Journey paintings, I created another series of paintings that, despite drastically different circumstances, were also a healing journey. Ironically, that series began with a celebration. In 2001, my family decided to throw a surprise birthday party to mark my 60th birthday. Since my actual birthday fell on Tuesday that year, they planned the celebration for the weekend before my big day. Now, after dancing the night away at a party, I thought I would just relax with my children and grandchildren on my birthday, but everything changed. when Tuesday morning rolled around, because my birthday is September 11th. And on that particular 9/11, I woke to images on the television of airplanes crashing into the World Trade Center. My 60th birthday became the most terrifying day of my life. My belief that our country was loved and revered around the world was shattered. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. I was in shock. I wanted to hide. And then I realized what I needed to do was to paint. As I did when I received my cancer diagnosis, I needed to capture what I was seeing as well as what I was feeling. In the days after the Twin Towers fell, I created one painting a day, focusing on feet to symbolize the feeling of lost stability, as I felt the rug had been pulled out from under me. My initial paintings included empty shoes found around crash sites and boots of our military standing guard. But as we collectively honored the victims of this horrific attack and started to heal, the growing sense of patriotism, unity, and hope that we were feeling as a country found its way into the final paintings of this series. As a painter, documenting moments in time, I covet the fact that my works contribute to a visual account of our shared history. In some ways, artists are part historians and also part cultural anthropologists. With our observant eyes, we are among the first to notice new trends. A few years ago, I had the extraordinary honor of creating a painting to celebrate not a person, but a horse, American Feral. As you may recall, this thoroughbred was the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years and became the first horse to win the Grand Slam of American thoroughbred racing. While I was photographing American Feral at Santa Anita Park, I noticed something else. As I was capturing images of the majestic creature, I saw other people taking pictures too, but they were using their cell phones and posing for selfies. And I thought, that is so much a part of our culture at this moment. Later, Ed and I were watching the Pope on television at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and instead of shaking hands and asking for blessings or kissing his ring, attendees at this special Mass were taking selfies with the Pope. Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go. Here were all of these people witnessing an important moment in history, and yet they were missing the moment because they were too preoccupied trying to record their own personal histories. But my favorite selfie moment occurred in Paris. I had traveled to France once again to view the Mona Lisa in Paris. And there's always a line waiting to view the world's most famous painting. And on this particular trip, I realized something had changed. The painting was the same as when Da Vinci finished the final brushstrokes some 500 years ago. But the behavior of the people in line was different, dramatically different. Crowded into the room were people from all regions of the world, and yet they were all doing the same thing. Arms were raised above their heads, cell phones were in their hands, and they were taking pictures of each other and themselves. And it wasn't just a handful of people. There were hundreds of them. Looking around the room, I thought to myself, when were we became less interested in Emily Post and more focused on our online posts. Now, the advantage of being an artist is that our experiences become material, and we also get to use our work to comment on society. So this incident inspired me to create a painting called Mona Who at the Louvre. Even though the selfie craze might be considered a little crazy by some of us in this room, there is a lesson to be learned. Part of leading a vibrant life is being open and accepting to how the world is changing around us. So I've taken a few selfies. But more important, I recognize that I had to embrace technology and its overwhelming influences on our daily existence. Learning the many aspects of technology can be overwhelming, but being fearful of it is like putting yourself in a prison and being cut off from the rest of the world. Now, I have chosen to deal with technology in the same way that I have dealt with every other issue that I have feared, by taking baby steps. Now I'm taking weekly lessons on a variety of technological tools, ranging from manipulation of digital images, files, to instructions on the use of different apps. And each lesson has opened the doors of more possibilities for both the creation and promotion of my artwork. Being open to new possibilities allowed me to venture along anticipated paths in my career. And this is some of my social media. Years ago, I was asked if I would illustrate children's books. Despite the fact that my watercolors feature vibrant colors and storytelling perspective, elements that I have defined my artistic style since I was a child, the thought of being a book illustrator had never crossed my mind. When I responded no, and that I'd never taken a class in illustration, the person who posed the question, Icy Smith, responded, "I will teach you," and so she has. Since that fateful day, I have illustrated 4 books for Icy Smith's publishing company, which is East West Discovery Press, including one book about the space shuttle Endeavour, written by astronaut John Olivas. In addition, I have illustrated a cookbook for USC entitled Luscious. And 8 paintings from this cookbook are currently hanging in the cafeteria of Keck Medical Center. Now, I am working on my 5th children's book, which is focused on ancient Pacific navigation. The story follows a wise man and his grandson who rely on an intimate relationship with nature, the tides, the fish, the stars, the winds, to find their way and explore their world. In many ways, illustrating these multicultural children's books is very similar to documenting my travels in paintings. Both of these avenues provide an outlet for sharing with the hopes of fostering greater understanding of different cultures, lifestyle, and traditions. But there's an added benefit with book illustration that words cannot describe. The joy I receive when seeing the looks on children's faces as the stories are shared with them. So, this is the story of my journey, a story of a young girl who dreamed of being an artist, a tale of how it took decades to claim my artistic identity, and how new chapters are still being written by a 76-year-old woman who is still discovering who she is after all of these years. For me, it was art that healed me. and it set me on a path of adventure and discovery. Leonardo da Vinci said, "Where the spirit goes does not work with the hand, there is no art." No matter what we do or where we are in the journey of our lives, we can all set out to create masterpieces in our lives by doing what we love, what we are meant to be doing. So, slow down and start dreaming. See the colors and the wonder of every moment, and be open to the opportunities that the world is offering. I hope you will be able to have the courage to take your own journey, whether it be as an artist or another endeavor. Maybe you set something aside many years ago, and maybe I'm here today to remind you it's never too late to pick it up again, to find the courage to claim your true identity, to follow whatever that adventure and wherever it takes you, and to create your own masterpiece of life. Thank you for inviting me to share my journey with you tonight. And before I close, I want to ask if there's any questions.
Thank you, Gayle. This is so inspirational.
Well, you know, I was asked to answer questions after dinner, but I am going to go home to my dear husband who couldn't come tonight, and I'm going to skip dinner. I'm sorry to miss talking to all of you, but if you have any questions now, I'd be happy to answer anything. Yes.
Thank you so much for your inspiring talk and for your agency in choosing. We're inspired by the choices you've made and how it's enriched our city and our community at USC. Would you please tell us about this hope and life-affirming spirit of yours that has been incarnated at the Catholic Center and in many places, airports? And would you tell us about this?
Do you have a couple of hours?
Well, it seems
Well,
like
I'll-
butterfly may be a little clue.
Well, you know, whatever the religion, I will tell you that religious art, you have to dig deeper into your soul to do it. The Catholics believe in art. The Hindus believe in art. I think I am drawn to them because of that. Some religions think it's false gods, but I don't think so. I think that art touches our soul, and some of us respond to visual. And so for religion to show itself, the Buddhists also, but I think that I respond more to actually visuals. And to watch artists, whether you're doing it or someone else, is a magical thing. One of the things that maybe you've all seen is at the Catholic Center I did the stained glass window, which is over the door. And it was such a wonderful journey with Judson Studios, who did a whole new process because they had never done watercolors. And I really didn't know, I'd never done a window. So the two of us together, and it was the first time they fused glass together to make it look like watercolor. And it does. If you've seen it, it's just amazing. A whole different thing. But you know, everything has an adventure to it. So that's why I'm doing it, because I love that adventure. Thank you. Yes.
I have a question. Okay, our school districts do not believe in art. When I grew up, we had art classes. We have nothing now. How do we convince our government that art is important in our education?
Well, I don't think we can convince anyone in political terms of anything. But what I did about it was at the cathedral I started the Robert Graham Memorial Student Art Exhibit, which is the Catholic schools, because they do teach art. And every year I expanded it to more schools. Luckily, Robert Graham's assistant took it over when I decided that I wanted to spend more time doing art. But I did it for 6 years, and it was an amazing experience to watch these kids. And some of them went to USC. Yeah, and you know what? It was so much fun because you could feel their excitement in doing the art and trying to capture their feelings on religion, but also then to hear that they were going to SC, and I keep up with them. So that's another thing that's fun. I love art, and I teach my 3 little granddaughters art several days a week, and they're becoming so good at it that my 6-year-old, on Valentine's Day, Trader Joe's had a competition of which she won. And I was so thrilled for her. She was so young, she didn't even know about competition, really. But now she does. It was really fun. Yes?
This is on a rather lighter note, but since you have to leave, if anyone here wants to hear about finding art and doing art after age 50 and taking over the kids' bedrooms, I would be glad to answer any questions.
Then we share that adventure. Yeah. Well, just one more comment. You know, Virginia Woolf wrote A Room of Her Own. That's what started me to realize that I was in a closet before that, and I had no confidence. So she had to have a room of her own to write, and I had to have a room of my own to create art. So I just took all the kids' rooms and made them into one big studio. Thank you all for listening.